Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Easy English Spark Channel. I'm so excited to have you here today. I hope you're all doing great and ready to dive into an incredible story that will not only entertain you, but also enhance your English listening and speaking skills. Today, we're going on a journey. A story full of unexpected twists, life-changing decisions, and the impact of one lost letter that could have changed everything. Through this engaging story, you'll practice understanding natural English speech, improving your vocabulary, and building confidence in your speaking skills. So, whether you're learning English for travel, work, or daily conversations, this is a perfect way to immerse yourself in English storytelling and sharpen your skills effortlessly. Let's get started and light up your English journey. Part 1. Liam's Future. Liam Carter sat on the floor of his bedroom, surrounded by old photographs. He held one in his hands, a slightly faded picture of himself as a child. In the photo, he was only 5 years old, smiling brightly, standing next to a little girl with curly blonde hair. That girl was Sophie Bennett, his best friend, his childhood companion, and for the past 2 years, his girlfriend. The room was quiet except for the low hum of music playing from his headphones. The soft glow of his bedside lamp cast long shadows on the walls, which were covered with sketches and paintings. His passion, his dream. He wanted to be an artist, and if everything went according to plan, he would be moving to London in the fall to study at one of the best art schools in the country. Liam, are you even listening? His mother's voice cut through the silence. Rachel Carter stood just outside his door, waiting for a response. But there was none. She knocked twice, then pushed the door open. Liam looked up, startled. "Oh, hey, Mom," Rachel sighed. "I've been calling you for 5 minutes. What are you doing?" Liam hesitated, then handed her the photo. "Do you remember this?" Rachel took the picture and smiled. "Of course. That was your 5th birthday party. You and Sophie were inseparable back then." Liam nodded. "Yeah. That was before Dad left." Rachel's smile faded slightly, and she turned toward the window. The memories of that time were painful, even after 12 years. Simon Carter, her husband, had walked out of their lives one morning without warning. No letters, no phone calls, nothing. Just an empty space where a father should have been. And now, out of nowhere, after all these years, he had called last week, asking to see them. Rachel had said no, but deep down, she wasn't sure if she meant it. She turned back to Liam. "What's with all the old photos?" Liam shrugged. "I just wanted to find the ones I have of Sophie. I thought I'd take them with me when I go to London. You know, for art school. Rachel sat on the edge of his bed watching him. It's a little early to be thinking about that, isn't it? You haven't even gotten your acceptance letter yet. I will, Liam said confidently. They loved my portfolio when I visited 2 weeks ago. They told me I had a real shot. Rachel smiled. I know, sweetheart. I just don't want you to get your hopes up too high. Liam laughed and picked up another picture. It was an old one of Sophie at 11 years old, making a ridiculous face at the camera. I can't wait to tell Sophie. She'll be so excited for me. Rachel hesitated. Liam, have you actually talked to Sophie about this? Yeah, he said, flipping through the stack of photos. She's fine with it. I mean, I'll come home on the weekends, so it's not like we won't see each other. Rachel frowned slightly, but said nothing. Anyway, Liam continued, standing up and stretching. I'm heading over to Sophie's now. We're going out tonight. There's a live reggae band playing on Broad Street. Rachel stood up as well. All right, just don't. Be back too late. I won't, Liam promised. Maybe around midnight. Rachel watched as he grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. She wanted to say something, warn him maybe, but she hesitated. Maybe Jason and Sophie really were different. They had known each other since primary school. They had something special, but then again, she had once thought the same thing about Simon. And look what happened. Liam left before she could say another word. 5 minutes later, the phone rang. Rachel jumped slightly, staring at it for a moment before answering. A familiar voice came through the line. Hi, Mrs. Carter. Is Liam there? Rachel immediately recognized Sophie's voice, but something in her tone sounded off. No, Sophie. He just left. He's on his way to your house. There was a long pause. Oh, Sophie said quietly. Okay. Rachel's grip on the phone tightened. Is something wrong? No. Well, yes, but it's okay. I'll tell him when he gets here. The line went dead. Rachel stood there holding the receiver, her mind racing. Something wasn't right. Sophie sounded nervous, anxious. She hoped Liam wasn't about to have his heart broken. Part 2. Olivia's career decision. It was late in the afternoon when Olivia Spencer stepped into the house, dropping her bag onto the kitchen counter with a sigh. The house was quiet, too quiet. She glanced at the clock. 5:45 p.m. In about 15 minutes, her husband Ethan would walk through the door, exhausted after another long day at Julie's, the upscale French restaurant where he worked as the head chef. Their son Noah was upstairs, probably finishing his homework, or more likely watching videos on his phone instead of doing his assignments. Olivia walked over to the fridge, grabbed a bottle of cold water, and took a long sip, her mind racing. She had been waiting all day for this moment. The decision. A thick envelope from head office sat on the kitchen table. She had already read the letter inside, twice in fact, but it still didn't feel real. The offer was official. She had been promoted to the position of branch manager in Manchester. It was a major step forward in her career. More responsibility, higher pay, and a chance to oversee one of the largest branches in the region. It was everything she had worked for since she started at the bank nearly 10 years ago. But it also meant leaving Brighton, their home, their friends, Ethan's restaurant, Noah's school, and now she had to tell Ethan. The front door opened. Olivia turned as Ethan walked in, rolling his shoulders like he was carrying the weight of the entire kitchen staff. He kicked off his shoes and ran a hand through his dark hair, looking as drained as ever. "Hey," he said, offering a tired smile. "You okay?" Olivia hesitated. "Yeah, just long day." Ethan laughed dryly. "Tell me about it." "One of my line cooks quit today. Just walked out in the middle of service. And to top it off, we had a surprise food critic come in. No pressure, right?" He walked over to the sink, filled a glass of water, and took a long drink. "Anyway, enough. About me. How was your day?" Olivia swallowed hard. Something happened at work. Ethan's eyes flickered with concern. "Good or bad?" She exhaled. "I got promoted." Ethan's face lit up. "Liv, that's amazing. I knew they'd see your potential. You totally deserve it." She forced a smile. "Yeah, it's a great opportunity." Ethan frowned slightly, sensing the hesitation in her voice. "What's wrong?" Olivia took a deep breath and finally said it. "The job is in Manchester." For a moment there was silence. Ethan put his glass down. "Manchester?" She nodded. "They want me to take over one of the biggest branches. It's a huge step up. More money, more influence. It's what I've been working toward for years." Ethan leaned against the counter, rubbing his jaw. "Wow, I mean, I'm really proud of you. But Manchester? That's hours away." "I know," Olivia said quickly. "I told them I needed to talk to you before I made any decisions." Ethan folded his arms, thinking. "So what are you saying? That we all move? That I leave Julie's and Noah leaves his school?" Olivia hesitated. She knew this was the hardest part of the conversation. I don't know yet. I want to do what's best for all of us. Ethan let out a slow breath, shaking his head. I love my job, Liv. You know that. It's not just a job to me. It's my passion. The restaurant is finally getting recognition. If I leave now, I'm throwing away everything I've worked for. I know, Olivia said, her voice soft. But this is my passion too. I've worked just as hard for this. You've always supported my career before. I need you to support me now. A tense silence filled the room. Footsteps sounded on the stairs, and Noah appeared in the doorway. He was 11 years old, wearing an oversized hoodie and clutching his phone. Hey, what's going on? Ethan and Olivia exchanged glances. Nothing, buddy, Ethan said quickly. Just talking about work. Noah looked between them. You guys look weird. Are we moving or something? The bluntness of the question caught Olivia off guard. What makes you say that? Noah shrugged. I don't know. Just a feeling. Ethan cleared his throat. Nothing's decided yet, Noah. The boy studied them for a moment. Well, I don't want to move, just saying. Olivia sighed. I get that, sweetheart. But sometimes opportunities come up, and we have to make tough choices. Noah frowned. Yeah, but what about my friends? My football team? Olivia bit her lip. This was exactly what she had been afraid of. We're just talking about it right now, okay? Noah mumbled something under his breath and walked back upstairs. Ethan turned back to Olivia. He's right, Liv. It's not just about you and me. It's about his life, too. She nodded. That's why we need to figure this out. Together. Ethan rubbed his temples. What if you go first? Take the job, see how it is. Noah and I can stay here for a while. Maybe do weekends apart for a few months? Olivia looked at him, her heart sinking. You really think we can live apart for that? Long? Ethan exhaled sharply. I don't know, Liv, but I do know that if I leave my job for you and I end up resenting it, that's not good for either of us. She swallowed hard. He was right. Neither of them wanted to force the other into giving up their dreams. She reached for his hand. We'll figure it out. We have to. Ethan nodded slowly. Yeah, we do. For now, there were no clear answers. Only a decision that would change everything. Part 3. Dinner at Hazel's. The scent of garlic, tomatoes, and freshly baked bread filled the air as Hazel Bennett stood in her kitchen, carefully layering pasta sheets for her homemade lasagna. The rich, bubbling sauce simmered on the stove, sending waves of warmth through the small but cozy apartment. She loved cooking for friends. It had become a tradition. Friday night dinners at her place, filled with laughter, good wine, and long conversations. Tonight was no different. Her best friend, Ella, was coming over, and Hazel had spent the afternoon preparing everything just right. She was excited, but also distracted. Her mind kept drifting back to the past few months, back to the trip to Italy she and Ella had taken together. The rolling hills of Tuscany, the ancient streets of Florence, and the man she had met there, Luca Moretti. A tour guide by day, a musician by night, he had captivated her from the first moment they spoke. Hazel sighed as she stirred the sauce. Since she returned to London, she hadn't been able to stop thinking about him. They had exchanged emails and a few phone calls, but the distance was difficult. She wanted to believe that it was more than just a holiday romance, but was it? A knock at the door snapped her out of her thoughts. She wiped her hands on a towel and rushed to open it. Ella Pierce, stylish as ever, stood outside holding a bottle of red wine. "Smells incredible in here," she said, stepping inside. "Did you actually cook, or did you order from that fancy Italian place again?" Hazel laughed, rolling her eyes. "I cooked. Thank you very much." Ella set the wine down and grinned. "You're spoiling me." She sniffed the air dramatically. "Lasagna?" "Lasagna," Hazel confirmed, lifting the dish from the oven, golden cheese bubbling on top. Ella made herself comfortable at the dining table, pouring 2 glasses of wine. "So, any news from your Italian lover?" Hazel sighed. "You always call him that." Ella raised an eyebrow. "Because that's what he is. A ridiculously handsome man you met in Italy, who plays guitar under the stars and whispers poetry in Italian. If that's not a romance novel, I don't know what is." Hazel smirked but didn't answer right away. She set the lasagna on the table, then sat down, twirling the stem of her wine glass between her fingers. "He's coming to London." Ella almost choked on her drink. "What? When?" "Next week," Hazel said, unable to keep the nervous excitement out of her voice. "He emailed me this morning. He said he wants to see me." Ella's eyes widened. "Oh my God, this is huge. Are you excited? Nervous?" "Both," Hazel admitted. "I mean, we only knew each other for 3 weeks. It felt magical, but that was on vacation. It's different now. What if it was just the setting? And when we see each other here, it's not the same? Ella took a sip of wine, thinking. That's a fair concern. But you'll never know if you don't give it a chance. Maybe it's real. Maybe he really wants to be with you. Hazel exhaled. I just don't want to get my hopes up. I'm not looking for some fantasy. I want something real. Ella nodded. I get that. But let's be honest. You haven't had a serious relationship in, 2 years? 2.5, Hazel corrected, making a face. Exactly, Ella said. And this could be the thing that shakes up your life a little. You deserve that. Hazel smiled softly. Maybe. They ate in comfortable silence for a moment, the warmth of the meal filling the space between them. Hazel had always felt at ease with Ella. She was the one person who never judged, never pushed too hard, but always told the truth. After a while, Ella leaned back in her chair. So, let's say Luca comes here. You two meet, and it's amazing. Then what? Hazel hesitated. I don't know. He has his whole life in Italy. I have mine here. Long distance is complicated. Ella gave her a knowing look. Love is complicated. Hazel laughed. Now you sound like a Hallmark movie. Hey, Hallmark movies exist for a reason. They clinked their glasses together. As the night went on, the conversation drifted away from Luca and onto lighter things, work, mutual friends, travel plans. But in the back of Hazel's mind, she couldn't stop wondering, would next week change everything? Part 4. Adam's Financial Struggles. The sound of the front door closing echoed through the small apartment. Adam Parker sighed as he tossed his keys onto the kitchen counter, shrugging off his worn-out jacket. His shoulders ached from the long day, and his mind was clouded with exhaustion. Another day, another shift at the Gazette, the local newspaper where he worked as a reporter, a job he once loved but now barely tolerated. The salary was barely enough to keep him afloat, and as much as he hated to admit it, things were getting desperate. He walked over to the fridge and pulled it open. A half-empty carton of milk, some leftover pasta from 2 nights ago, a bottle of ketchup. Not exactly inspiring. Adam sighed, closing the fridge. His bank account was running on fumes, and he still had bills to pay. Rent, utilities, his phone bill, and a loan he had taken out last year when things had first started getting tight. How did I get here? He muttered under his breath. 10 years ago, when he had started at the Gazette, He had dreams, big ones. He was going to write groundbreaking stories, expose corruption, maybe even work for a major publication in London or New York. But the years had passed, and instead of uncovering scandals, he was writing about community bake sales and lost pets. The worst part? His younger brother, Nathan, had it all figured out. Nathan worked in finance, lived in a sleek high-rise apartment, and never seemed to worry about money. Every time they met for lunch, Nathan would casually drop hints. "You know, Adam, you're smart. You could get into something more stable. Ever thought about getting into digital marketing? Journalism isn't exactly booming. I could pull some strings, get you an interview at my company." Adam hated those conversations. He didn't want a corporate job. He had always believed that doing what he loved mattered more than making money. But right now, money mattered. He walked over to his desk and opened his laptop, pulling up his bank statement. The numbers made his stomach twist. Rent due in 3 days. Electricity bill overdue. Credit card payment pending. The worst part? Emma's school trip. His 16-year-old daughter, Emma, had been excited about her upcoming geography trip to Norway for weeks. She had been saving up her birthday money, but it wasn't enough. The school required the full payment by Monday morning. Adam rubbed his face, staring at the screen. Where was he going to find $700 in 3 days? He had one option. Left Nathan. The thought made his chest tighten. He didn't like asking for help, especially from his younger brother. Nathan was successful, confident, and always made Adam feel like he had fallen behind. But for Emma, he had to swallow his pride. Taking a deep breath, he picked up his phone and dialed. After 2 rings, Nathan's voice came through the line. "Adam. Hey, what's up?" Adam cleared his throat. "Hey, Nathan. Listen, I need to ask you something." There was a brief pause. Nathan could sense where this was going. "Sure. What is it?" Adam hesitated. "I need to borrow some money, just for a little while. It's for Emma's school trip." Nathan sighed. That sigh. The one that said, "Here we go again." "Adam, look, I've helped you out before. Maybe it's time you start thinking about long-term solutions instead of short-term fixes." Adam clenched his jaw. "I know, but I just need this for now. I'll pay you back as soon as I can." "That's what you said last time." Adam felt his stomach drop. He was right. Nathan had lent him money before, and Adam had struggled to pay him back. "Listen, I love you, man, but I think it's time for you to make some changes. You're a great writer, But journalism isn't exactly paying the bills. You need to think about your future. Adam gritted his teeth. He knew Nathan wasn't trying to be cruel, but it still stung. I get it, Adam said stiffly. Forget I asked. Adam, but he had already hung up. The room felt suffocating. Adam dropped his phone onto the desk and buried his face in his hands. He felt angry. Angry at Nathan for refusing to help. Angry at himself for needing the help in the first place. And worst of all, angry that Nathan was right. He needed a plan. The next morning, he woke up before dawn and did something he hadn't done in a long time. He started writing, really writing. Not for the Gazette, not for a paycheck, but for himself. Maybe, just maybe, there was still a way out of this mess. Part 5. Liam and Sophie's breakup. The soft hum of city traffic filtered through the apartment window as Liam Carter sat on the edge of his bed, staring at his phone. The screen was still lit up with the last message from Sophie Adams. We need to talk. Can I come over? He knew what that meant. For weeks now, things had been unraveling. Conversations had turned into one-word answers. Laughter had faded into awkward silences, and their once effortless love had started to feel like a chore. Liam had been dreading this moment. He had hoped that if he just held on a little longer, things would go back to the way they used to be. Back when late-night talks felt endless. Back when they would wake up tangled in each other's arms. Back when they were Liam and Sophie, unbreakable. A knock at the door jolted him out of his thoughts. Taking a deep breath, he stood up and walked over, his heart pounding harder than it should. When he opened the door, there she was, Sophie. She looked tired, her brown eyes filled with an emotion he couldn't quite read. She wore her usual leather jacket, hands tucked into the pockets like she was shielding herself. Hey, she said softly. Hey, Liam replied, stepping aside to let her in. She walked in, glancing around the apartment. It was the same as always, guitar in the corner, books stacked haphazardly on the coffee table, the faint scent of coffee and old vinyl records in the air. But something felt different. Sophie turned to face him. We need to talk, she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam swallowed. Yeah, I figured. She let out a long breath and ran a hand through her hair. Liam, I don't know how to say this, but I think we both know this isn't working anymore. There it was. Liam felt the weight of her words settle into his chest. He had expected them, but that didn't make them hurt any less. "I don't want to lose you," he said, his voice quieter than he intended. Sophie's eyes softened. "I don't want to lose you either. But we're not the same anymore." "Are we?" Liam shook his head, looking down. "No, we're not." Silence. She took a small step forward. "I don't blame you. I don't blame me either. I feel like we've been holding on to something that isn't there anymore." Liam exhaled, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. "I thought maybe we could fix it." "I did too," she admitted. "But how long have we been saying that? And how long have we just been going through the motions, pretending?" He wanted to argue, wanted to say they could figure it out. That love wasn't always easy, that they just needed to try harder. But deep down, he knew she was right. It hadn't been the same for a long time. Sophie stepped closer, reaching out to take his hand. Her fingers were warm, familiar, but it felt different now, like she was already letting go. "I love you, Liam," she said, and he knew she meant it. "But I don't think we're meant to be together anymore." Liam felt his throat tighten. "So this is it?" She nodded, blinking back tears. "Yeah." He let out a shaky breath, squeezing her hand one last time before letting go. And just like that, it was over. Sophie gave him a small, sad smile before turning toward the door. She hesitated, like she wanted to say something else, but instead, she just whispered, "Goodbye, Liam." Then she was gone. The door clicked shut behind her, leaving Liam standing in the silence of the apartment they had once filled with love, laughter, and dreams. Now it was just him, alone. Part 6. Olivia and Ethan's Tough Decision. The soft glow of the bedside lamp cast long shadows across the bedroom walls. Olivia Turner sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her hands as she twisted the silver ring on her finger, a nervous habit she had developed over the years. The air in the room was heavy, thick with unspoken words. Across from her, sitting in the armchair near the window, was Ethan Reynolds. He hadn't said much since they got home from dinner. His gaze was fixed outside, watching the rain trickle down the glass. But Olivia knew his mind was somewhere else, on the conversation they had been avoiding for weeks. It wasn't supposed to be like this. They had always been partners, teammates, best friends. For the last 4 years, they had built a life together. Weekend getaways, late-night movie marathons, shared inside jokes that only they understood. But now they were standing at a crossroads. Olivia took a deep breath and finally broke the silence. Ethan. He turned his head slightly, but didn't meet her eyes. Yeah? We need to talk. A bitter chuckle escaped his lips. I figured. She swallowed hard, forcing herself to keep going. I got the offer. That got his attention. He sat up straighter, his jaw tightening. The job in New York? She nodded. They called this morning. They want me to start in 3 months. Silence. Olivia had dreamed of this moment for years. Becoming a lead designer for one of the top fashion houses in the industry. It was everything she had worked for. She should have been thrilled. But all she felt was a hollow ache in her chest, because accepting this job meant leaving Ethan behind. Ethan leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. And what do you want to do? Olivia hesitated. I don't know. His expression darkened. That's not true. She sighed. Of course I want to take it, Ethan. It's an incredible opportunity. He nodded slowly. Right. But I don't want to lose you, she added quickly. Ethan let out a quiet laugh, but there was no humor in it. Liv, we both know this, isn't a situation where we can have it all. You can't take the job and stay here with me. Her heart clenched. We could try long distance. Ethan shook his head. Be honest with yourself. Would that really work? She wanted to say yes. She wanted to believe that they could beat the odds, that they could survive the distance. But deep down, she knew the truth. Ethan wasn't the type of person who thrived in a halfway relationship. He was all in or nothing at all. And Olivia had been so focused on her career that she never thought about what would happen when she finally got everything she wanted. You could. Come with me, she whispered. Ethan exhaled, running a hand through his hair. Liv, my whole life is here. My job, my family, my friends. I can't just pick up and leave. I know, she said softly. He looked at her then, really looked at her, like he was memorizing every detail. Her deep brown eyes, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous, the freckles scattered across her nose. He had spent years loving every part of her, and now he had to let her go. You deserve this, Ethan said after a long pause. And I won't be the guy who holds you back. Olivia felt her throat tighten. So what are we saying? Ethan stood up, walking toward her. He reached out and took her hands in his, the same hands he had held through every high and low, the hands he thought he would hold forever. We're saying goodbye, Tears welled in Olivia's eyes. I don't want this to end. Neither do I, he admitted. But sometimes love isn't enough. She let out a shaky breath, squeezing his hands one last time before pulling away. The weight of their decisions settled over them like a storm cloud. No yelling, no anger, just two people who loved each other but wanted different things. Olivia wiped at her eyes. I should start packing. Ethan forced a smile. Yeah, you should. And just like that, everything they had built, the late-night talks, the shared dreams, the years of love, came to an end. Not because they stopped loving each other, but because sometimes the hardest choice is the right one. Part 7. Hazel's Unexpected Visitor. The rain drummed softly against the windows as Hazel Bennett curled up on her couch, a blanket draped over her legs, a book in her hands, and a steaming cup of tea sitting untouched on the coffee table. It had been a long week. Work had been exhausting, and her mind was still swirling with the stress of balancing deadlines, office politics, and the creeping sense that she was beginning to outgrow the life she had built in this city. She sighed, turning a page in her book, but her eyes weren't really following the words. Her thoughts kept drifting elsewhere, to old memories, to choices she hadn't made, to roads she had left unexplored. Then, a knock at the door. Hazel frowned, glancing at the clock. 10:47 p.m. Who would be coming over this late? Her heart gave a tiny, uneasy flutter. It couldn't be Olivia. She had left for New York. It wasn't Liam. He was still reeling from his breakup. Another knock. More insistent this time. Slowly, she pulled off the blanket, set her book aside, and padded toward the door, her bare feet silent against the wooden floor. She hesitated. Who is it? A pause. Then, a voice she hadn't heard in years. It's me, Hazel. She felt her breath catch. No, it couldn't be. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the doorknob and pulled it open. Standing on her doorstep, drenched from the rain, was Noah Carter, her ex, the one she had never fully moved on from, the one who had left 5 years ago, chasing his career in London, saying he wasn't ready for commitment, wasn't ready for forever. Now, here he was, soaking wet, looking at her like he had just realized she was home all along. Hazel gripped the edge of the door, her mind racing. Noah? Hey, Hazel, he said, his voice softer than she remembered. She blinked, trying to process what she was seeing. The last time they had spoken, it had been over the phone. A painful conversation filled with half-truths and empty promises. He had made his choice. He had left. And yet, he was here now. "What are you doing here?" she finally asked, her voice steadier than she felt. Noah let out a breath, running a hand through his soaked hair. I was in town for work. I meant to leave this morning, but I couldn't. Not before seeing you?" Hazel's chest tightened. "After 5 years?" she asked, her voice edged with disbelief. "You suddenly had to see me?" "I know how it sounds," he admitted. "And I know I have no right to just show up here like this, but I needed to. There are things I should have said back then. Things I should say now." Hazel felt her pulse quicken. She had spent years rebuilding herself after Noah left. She had convinced herself that she had moved on, that the past was the past. So why was her heart pounding? She folded her arms across her chest. "Noah, if you're here to apologize, you don't have to. I stopped waiting for that a long time ago." His expression flickered with something, regret maybe. "I know," he said. "But this isn't just an apology." Hazel inhaled sharply, bracing herself. "Then what is it?" Noah hesitated, like he was searching for the right words. "Then I made a mistake." Silence. The words hung between them, heavy with years of unsaid things. Hazel's stomach twisted. "What do you mean?" "I thought I needed to leave to figure out what I wanted," Noah admitted. "I told myself that if I stayed, I'd be giving up too soon on my dreams, on my career. But the truth is, I was scared. Scared of how much I loved you. Scared that if I stayed, I'd never be enough for you." Hazel's breath caught in her throat. "I've spent 5 years trying to convince myself I did the right thing," Noah continued, his voice thick with emotion. "But no matter where I went, no matter what I did, it always came back to you." Hazel felt dizzy. How many nights had she imagined this moment? Wondered what she would say if Noah ever walked back into her life? And now that he had, she had no idea what to do. She shook her head slowly. "Noah, you don't get to just come back and say this now. You left. You made your choice." "I know," he whispered, "and I regret it every single day." Hazel swallowed the lump in her throat. She had spent years waiting for closure, waiting to understand why he had left so easily. And now he was, standing in front of her, saying everything she had once wished he would. But it was too late, wasn't it? She exhaled sharply and looked at him. Really looked at him. He was different now. Older. More worn. But his eyes? His eyes were the same. She wanted to slam the door. She wanted to pull him inside. She wanted to scream at him. She wanted to kiss him. Instead, she simply whispered, "I don't know if I can do this." Noah nodded, understanding. "I'm not asking for anything, Hazel. I just needed you to know." Hazel stared at him, the rain still falling behind him, the past and present colliding in a way that made her feel utterly unsteady. Can I just come in for a minute?" Noah asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Hazel hesitated. Then, after a long pause, she stepped aside. "Come in." Part 8. Adam's Unknown Inheritance. The morning started like any other. Adam Westfield woke up to the sound of his alarm, groggily dragging himself out of bed. His small apartment was a mess of unopened bills, half-empty coffee cups, and scattered notes from freelance gigs that barely paid the rent. Life had never been easy for Adam, but lately, it felt like he was drowning. The pressure of trying to make ends meet while chasing his dream of becoming a writer was exhausting. He had long ago accepted that struggle was part of the journey. But lately, he had started wondering, was it really worth it? As he rubbed the sleep from his eyes, his phone buzzed. A number he didn't recognize flashed across the screen. With a sigh, he answered. "Hello? Good morning. Is this Adam Westfield?" A crisp, professional voice came through the line. "Yeah? Who's this?" "My name is Franklin Barrett from Barrett and Lennox Law Firm. I've been trying to reach you regarding an important legal matter. Could you come by our office today?" Adam frowned. A law firm? What could they possibly want with him? I think you've got the wrong guy," he said. "I don't have any legal matters." "I assure you, Mr. Westfield, this is specifically about you. It's urgent." Adam hesitated. If this was about debt, he wasn't in the mood to deal with. Look, I'm not in trouble or anything, am I?" The lawyer chuckled lightly. "Quite the opposite. This is regarding an inheritance." Adam nearly dropped his phone. An inheritance? His entire life, he had barely been able to hold on to $50 in his bank account, let alone something like an inheritance. It had to be a mistake. "Are you sure you have the right Adam Westfield?" he asked. "Yes, Mr. Westfield. Your full name, Birth date and records have all been verified. You've been named in Thomas Cooper's will. Adam froze. That name. It had been years since he last heard it, but he still remembered. Thomas Cooper, his childhood neighbor, an old man who had lived alone in the small house next to Adam's family when he was growing up. Adam's parents had never been close to Mr. Cooper, but Adam had spent hours with him as a kid, listening to his stories, helping him carry groceries, and sitting with him when the loneliness seemed too much for the old man to bear. As Adam grew older, life got in the way. He stopped visiting, stopped calling. He had assumed Mr. Cooper had long forgotten him, but now, 5 years after his passing, Adam was learning that the old man had never forgotten him. "I'll be there," Adam said, his voice barely above a whisper. 2 hours later, Adam found himself sitting in a polished office, the scent of leather-bound books and expensive cologne thick in the air. Across from him sat Franklin Barrett, an older man with sharp eyes and a neatly pressed suit. In front of him was a thick file, and on the desk between them, a sealed envelope with Adam's name on it. "This must be a mistake," Adam muttered. Barrett shook his head. "I assure you, it isn't." The lawyer leaned forward. "Mr. Cooper spoke very highly of you in his later years. He mentioned that you were one of the few people in his life who genuinely cared about him." Adam swallowed hard. He had always liked Mr. Cooper, but he had never thought of himself as someone special in the old man's life. Barrett continued. "Before his passing, Mr. Cooper made it very clear in his will that he wanted to leave something for you." Adam sat up straighter. "How much are we talking?" Barrett's lips twitched slightly. £50,000. Adam's heart stopped. He must have misheard. 50,000, he repeated, just to be sure. Barrett nodded. "That's correct." Adam felt lightheaded. £50,000. That was more money than he had ever had in his life. More than enough to pay off his debts. More than enough to finally take a breath and not constantly worry about rent, bills, and whether or not he'd have to skip meals. His hand shook as he reached for the envelope, but before he could open it, Barrett cleared his throat. "There's something else." Adam looked up. "What do you mean?" Barrett leaned back in his chair. "Mr. Cooper didn't just leave you money, he left you a house." Adam's brain short-circuited. "What?" "The property at 120 Wharf Road in Exeter. He left it to you." Adam blinked, struggling to process the words. A house? Not only had Mr. Cooper left him a life-changing amount of money, but now he was handing him a home? Are you serious? Adam finally choked out. Barrett nodded. Absolutely. Adam leaned back in his chair, running a hand down his face. This wasn't just unexpected. This was impossible. For the first time in his life, Adam had stability. No more bouncing between apartments. No more fearing eviction notices taped to his door. This house could be his fresh start, a second chance. But then a new thought hit him, like a freight train. Why? Why would Mr. Cooper leave him so much? Sure, they had been close when Adam was a kid, but not this close. Adam's fingers tightened around the envelope. There had to be more to this story, and he was going to find out. Part 9. The Fire and Lost Letters. The city was asleep, wrapped in the quiet of the early morning. It was 3:30 a.m., and the world outside was still, save for the distant hum of traffic and the occasional footsteps of night workers making their way home. Inside the Bath Central Mail Depot, a skeleton crew of postal workers moved mechanically through their night shifts, sorting letters and parcels, ensuring the morning deliveries would go out on time. Then, a faint smell of smoke. It started, as something almost unnoticeable, blending into the scent of old paper and machine oil. But within minutes it grew thicker, filling the air with an acrid sting. By the time someone noticed the faint flicker of orange light at the back of the warehouse, it was already too late. "Fire!" someone shouted. Panic erupted. The workers scrambled, some grabbing fire extinguishers, others running to pull the alarm, but the flames had already taken hold, crawling up the stacks of mail bags, hungry for paper, for air, for anything it could devour. Within moments, the fire spread, licking its way through the depot's wooden shelves, swallowing letters, burning away words that would never be read. Outside, sirens wailed, cutting through the silence of the night. Fire trucks screeched to a halt, firefighters bursting out, hoses ready. But inside, the damage had already been done. 2 large sacks of letters, completely destroyed. 2 sacks full of hopes, dreams, and news that would never reach their intended recipients, the letters that never arrived. Among the many letters lost in the fire were 4 that could have changed lives. Letter number 1. The one that could have given Liam a future. A crisp envelope from St. Martin's School of Art. London, addressed to Liam Campbell, 12 Moorland Road, Bath. Inside, the letter carried an acceptance offer, a golden ticket to a dream Liam had spent his entire life working toward. Dear Liam, thank you for coming to see us last week. We really like your work and believe you are the kind of student who will thrive here. We are happy to offer you a place at our college starting this September. Please confirm your attendance by March 25th. But Liam would never receive it. He would never know that his talent had been recognized, that he had been chosen. He would wait for weeks, checking the mailbox every day, his heart sinking further each time. Eventually, he would assume he had been rejected, and with that assumption, he would let go of his biggest dream. Letter number 2, the one that could have changed Olivia and Ethan's future. A thick envelope postmarked 120 Wharf Road, Exeter, addressed to David and Olivia Hayes, Bath. Inside, a life-changing surprise from Olivia's parents. Dear Olivia and Ethan, first of all, happy birthday, David. We have been thinking about our future and have decided to do something with our savings. We know how hard you've worked at Julie's restaurant, and we know that you've always wanted it to be yours. So we've bought it for you. Julie's is now officially yours. It was the ultimate gift, one that could have allowed Olivia to stay in Bath, to avoid the painful decision of moving to Newcastle for her new job. But that letter never arrived. Instead, Olivia and Ethan spent weeks debating their choices, never knowing that they had another option all along. By the time Olivia found out what her parents had done, it was too late. She had already moved, and what should have been a celebration became a heartbreaking regret. Letter number 3, the one that could have given Hazel the truth. A letter from Santiago, Chile, addressed to Hazel Bennett, Bath, from Xavier Santos. Dear Hazel, I hope you got my email, and I hope this letter won't make you angry. I'm coming to England because I must leave Chile. I haven't done anything wrong, but my brother has. He was involved with dangerous people, and now he has disappeared. His so-called friends think I have something of his. I don't, but they won't believe me. I need to get away. I need to be somewhere safe, and I want to see you. I think we were at the beginning of something special. Please believe me. I never lied to you. I'll be with you soon. Hazel had spent weeks wondering if Xavier had simply forgotten about her, if everything they shared had just been a holiday fling to him. She had assumed the worst. And when the strange man showed up at her door looking for Xavier, she had believed he was guilty of something terrible. If she had received this letter, she would have known the truth. She would have known that Xavier had been running for his life. And maybe, just maybe, she could have helped him. But instead, she was left with nothing but doubt and unanswered questions. Letter number 4, the one that could have saved Adam from struggling, A plain white envelope stamped from Barrett, Graben and Lennox Law Firm, Edinburgh, addressed to Adam Westfield, Bath. Dear Mr. Westfield, we are writing to inform you that you have been named in the will of Mr. Thomas Cooper. Mr. Cooper has left you an inheritance of $50,000 and a property at 120 Wharf Road, Exeter. Please contact our office at your earliest convenience to discuss the transfer of assets. The letter that could have lifted every burden off Adam's shoulders. The letter that could have freed him from financial ruin, from the constant fear of eviction, from the endless nights of wondering if he would ever make it as a writer. But Adam never received it. Instead, he continued to struggle. He sold his mother's jewelry to survive. He took on more freelance work than he could handle. And all the while, he had no idea that his life was supposed to be different. That a single piece of paper, now reduced to ash, had held the key to a future he never thought possible. The fire that changed everything. By the time the fire was put out, the damage was done. 2 bags of letters, gone forever. 4 lives, forever altered. Liam would give up on his dream. Olivia would move to Newcastle, never knowing she had a choice. Hazel would lose Xavier, never knowing why. And Adam would struggle, never knowing he had been saved, all because of a fire that had started from one careless spark, a fire that had burned away more than just paper. It had burned away what could have been. Part 10. Conclusion. What happened to everyone? Time moves forward, whether we are ready for it or not. The fire at the Bath Central Mail Depot may have been put out, but its consequences continued to shape lives in ways no one could have imagined. Some found new paths, some struggled, and some were left with unanswered questions. Here's what happened to everyone in the end. Liam Campbell, a dream delayed. For weeks, Liam waited for a letter from St. Martin's School of Art. He checked the mail every day, refreshing his email, hoping for any sign that his application had been accepted. Nothing came. His hope slowly faded, replaced by self-doubt. Maybe he hadn't been good enough. Maybe they had rejected him and didn't even bother to send a response. His mother noticed the shift in him, the way his enthusiasm disappeared, the way he avoided talking about the future. She tried to encourage him, but he refused to reapply. Instead, Liam took a retail job to help pay bills and stayed in Bath. It wasn't until a year later that he found out the truth. When he visited London for an art exhibition, he met a former professor from St. Martin's who recognized his name. You never replied to our acceptance letter, the professor said. Liam's stomach dropped. What letter? That was when he learned that he had been accepted all along. By then, it was too late. The class was full, and he had missed his opportunity. But something inside him reignited that day. He picked up his sketchbook again, determined to apply once more. Even if his journey had been delayed, he refused to let his dream die. Olivia and Ethan Hayes, a hard decision, a lasting regret after much debate. Olivia and Ethan packed up their lives and moved to Newcastle for her new job at the bank. The transition was tough. Ethan struggled to find work as a chef at the same level he had in Bath. Max, their son, missed his friends. Olivia, though successful at her new position, often felt empty, as if something wasn't quite right. 6 months later, she received a phone call from her parents. We wanted to surprise you, but we never heard back from you, her mother said. Olivia frowned. Surprise? That was when she learned the truth about the restaurant. Her parents had bought Julie's for Ethan. They had wanted to give him his own restaurant, a place where he could finally be his own boss. But because of the lost letter, they never knew. By the time Olivia found out, Ethan had already committed to a job in Newcastle. The opportunity in Bath was gone. For the first time, Olivia questioned if they had made the right choice. Could they go back? Ethan wanted to, but they had already uprooted their lives once. Starting over again felt impossible. So they stayed in Newcastle, but the regret never left them. Hazel Bennett, a love that never had a chance. For weeks, Hazel waited for Xavier to call, to write, to show up at her door. Instead, she got a stranger in her living room, a man looking for Xavier. A man who made her question everything. What had Xavier done? Had he lied to her? She wanted to believe the best about him, but the doubt was too strong. She convinced herself that she had dodged a bullet, that Xavier was just another man who made promises he couldn't keep. Then one day, she found his email again. I haven't done anything wrong. My brother was involved with dangerous people, and now they think I have something of his. I just need to be safe, and I want to see you. Reading it again, Hazel's heart ached. Had he been telling the truth? What if he had needed her help? She would never know, because he never made it to England. She searched online, trying to find any trace of him, but he had disappeared. Xavier was gone, and Hazel was left wondering for the rest of her life what could have been. Adam Westfield, the struggle that never should have happened. Adam never received his inheritance letter. Instead, he sold his mother's jewelry just to survive. He worked long hours, struggling to make ends meet, never knowing that he had $50,000 and a house waiting for him. For nearly a year, he lived paycheck to paycheck. Then a lawyer finally tracked him down. "You never responded to our letter," Barrett and Lennox told him. Adam sat in shock as they explained everything: the money, the house, the chance at a new life. For a moment, he felt nothing but anger. He had suffered for months, believing he had no options, when in reality, he had been financially free all along. But after the anger faded, he saw the bigger picture. He had learned to fight for himself. He had built something out of nothing, even when the odds were against him. With his newfound inheritance, Adam finally bought a small place of his own. He quit his soul-crushing jobs and focused on writing. And for the first time in his life, he wasn't just surviving. He was thriving. The fire that changed everything. One careless spark, one night of flames, one accident that erased opportunities, altered fates, and stole moments that could never be reclaimed. Some, like Adam, eventually found their way back to where they were meant to be. Some, like Liam, were forced to fight for a second chance. And some, like Hazel, would never get closure. Few letters lost in a fire shouldn't have had the power to change lives. But they did, and none of them would ever be the same. Epilogue. Moving forward. Years passed. The fire became a distant memory, just another incident in the city's history. But for those who had lost something that night, it never truly disappeared. Liam finally made it to art school, 2 years later than he had planned. Olivia and Ethan stayed in Newcastle, but they always wondered what could have been. Hazel never saw Xavier again. She never stopped thinking about him. Adam became a successful writer. His first book was called The Letter That Never Came. Some roads were rerouted. Some ended too soon. But life continued, even when the past refused to be forgotten. Great work today. Every moment you spend practicing brings you closer to mastering your English listening and speaking skills. Remember, progress comes with patience and consistency. If this story inspired you or helped you in your learning journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Easy English Spark channel for more lessons and stories. Keep listening, keep speaking, and keep believing in your growth. I'll see you in the next video. Take care and keep shining.